Africa, the tree of life.
Okay, thank you very much. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I thought we would do the third stanza as well, but that's okay. You may be seated. We'll make sure we get it right for tomorrow. Absolutely, perfectly right. Our chief guest gracing this occasion today, thank you very much, our permanent Principal Secretary, State Department of Youth Affairs and Creative Economy, none other than Mr. Ismail Maalim Madey. Thank you, sir, for being here with us, for gracing this occasion. We also want to recognize with us the Secretary for Youth Affairs, Mr. Raymond Ocheng. Karibu sana. Thank you, sir, for being here with us. We also have our hosts with us today. He's the head of the temporary secretariat of the Africa Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, Mr. Amadou Cisse. Thank you, sir, for being here with us. And of course, all the way from Addis Ababa, or is Mozambique, if you'd like. She is the acting director for social development, culture and sports, and head of the culture and sports division at the Africa Union Commission, Madam Angela Martins. Thank you very much for being here with us. And of course, our good friend from media. I'll remember your full name and I will recognize you right now. We also have with us the board members from the Kenya Film Commission and Timothy Owase, who is our CEO from the Kenya Film Commission. Again, very, very instrumental and involved in making sure that we have the Aacc, which is what we are doing today. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, ambassadors, I understand may be in the house. Thank you very much for all of you for being here. And please give yourselves a round of applause for being here today. The key thing that we are here, I'm sure we shall be told by Madam Angela Martins exactly why we are here. But I just want to read quickly from the draft concept of what happens here. The African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission is a specialized agency of the Africa Union established by a statute of the 32nd Ordinary Session of the AU, which happened in February 2021. Now that mandate of Aacc is to develop and strengthen the African audiovisual and cinema industry. That is music to my ears. Strengthening the audiovisual industry. And I understand that we do have a wonderful theme, and the theme is audiovisual and cinema, levers for building the Africa we want. These are levers for taking us to the Africa that we want, the Africa that we dream of, the united Africa, the big Africa, the strong Africa, the rich Africa. And that is why we are here today, to be able to chart that course. And I would like to invite none other than Madam Angela Martins to give us a little more sneak preview of exactly what that means. Please put your hands together for the Acting Director of Social Development, Culture, Sports, and the Head of Culture and Sports Division at the AUC. Karibu, Angela Martins.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning to you all. Mr. Ismail Madey, Principal Secretary, State Department for Youth Affairs and the Creative Economy, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sport of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Timothy Owase, CEO of the Kenya Film Commission, Mr. Amadou Cisse, Interim Head of the Temporary Secretariat of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, Excellencies and distinguished representatives of AU member states here present, distinguished audiovisual and cinema experts of the continent, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is with immense pleasure and a sense of profound accomplishment that I welcome you all to the stakeholders event happening on the sidelines of the historic launch of the Temporary Secretariat of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission here in Nairobi, Kenya. First and foremost, I extend our profound gratitude to each and every one of you for gracing this occasion with your esteemed presence. Your participation today underscores a shared commitment to the advancement of the African audiovisual and cinema industry. And I commend your unwavering dedication and support to this cause. This momentous event marks a significant milestone in our collective journey towards fostering the growth and development of the African audiovisual and cinema sector. The establishment of the temporary secretariat of the AACC signifies a tangible step forward in realizing the objectives set forth by the African Union to promote creativity, innovation, and solidarity through the medium of audiovisual and cinematic expressions. I would be incomplete if I did not express our heartfelt appreciation to the government of the Republic of Kenya for graciously offering to host the temporary secretariat of the AACC. Your support and commitment to this endeavor have been instrumental in making today's launch possible. In the same token, I would like to express gratitude to the Pan-African Federation of Filmmakers, FEPASI, and all filmmakers on the continent who have played a key role in the establishment of this important creative economy office. As we gather here today, we do so with a clear vision and purpose. The establishment of the temporary secretariat of the AACC represents a pivotal moment in our efforts to promote cooperation among African Union member states in the audiovisual and cinema domain, and to harness the power of audiovisual and cinema to promote a positive image of our beloved continent, Africa. Over the course of this historic launch, we will celebrate this important milestone and set the stage for the impactful work that lies ahead. Together, we will embark on the journey towards advocating and promoting the rapid entry into force of the statute of the AACC and laying the foundation for its effective implementation. Additionally, we will underscore the importance of conducting the second audit of the audiovisual and cinema sector across AU member states, as well as providing essential technical assistance to facilitate the formulation and implementation of policies which are vital to the growth of the African audiovisual and cinema industry on the continent. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we embark on this momentous journey, let us reaffirm our commitment to the ideals and objectives of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission. Let us seize this opportunity to harness the power of audiovisual and cinematic expressions to promote creativity, innovation, and solidarity across our continent. In closing, I wish to express gratitude to our partner, the African Import and Export Bank, for the support to continental key activities and initiatives in the creative and sports industry. I extend my best wishes for a successful and productive stakeholders event. May our gathering here today pave the way for a brighter and more prosperous future for the continent through the contribution of the African audiovisual and cinema industry. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, a much better clap than that. She's highlighted that the idea is to bring into rapid force, entry in force of the AACC, bring it into rapid force, rapid entry into force of the AACC. That is very, very important for you to say. being able to harness the power of the audiovisual sector, and of course, being able to have the implementation of the same. So it was quite exciting to be able to hear that the first office shall be here in Kenya, and we shall have the first head of that office here in Kenya, who will be coming to speak to us. But just before he comes in, I would like to, of course, recognize my good friend, Madam Margaret Kiogora. She's the CEO of the National Youth Council Kenya. I owe you a goat. And I also would like to recognize, you talked about FEPASI, and in the house we have Jane Murigo Munene and Maurice Moremi, who of course also housed the FEPASI office here a few years back, and thank you very much for being here. And all filmmakers, all filmmakers in the house today. Any filmmakers in the house? Yes, oh, there, you can see all the creative guys with very nice creative hair, yeah, dressed nicely. I see you all. From where are you? Are you from Kenya? Kenya? Kenyan filmmakers, yes, and you? Ghana, excellent. On this side, all Kenya. Kenya, where are you? Kenya, maybe Kenya? Okay, thank you. Where else? Morocco, the kingdom of Morocco. I must say, you guys, it's the kingdom of Morocco, man. Be recognizing. And yourself? Benin, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that is incredible. That is very far away. You know, that's all on the other side of the... Benin is a bit farther than Ghana. Ghana is closer to us, eh? Yes, I think so. I know you're from Kenya. Who else in the house? It's good to see all of you. Filmmakers, thank you. This is a very momentous occasion because we are now going to be speaking as Africa in one voice. And to lead us in that, ladies and gentlemen, is none other than the acting head of the Temporary Secretariat of the Africa Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, a commission of the AU. Put your hands together for Mr. Amadou Cisse. Maybe you can keep clapping until he gets here so that he feels encouraged. He's a tall gentleman from Senegal. Bonjour, my brother. You know, in Senegal, we know the footballers. Sadio Mane. And he tells me he used to play football.
Thank you so much. Bonjour à tout le monde. Vous avez vos casques? No, you don't have it. So let me speak in English to make it easy. So thank you so much, DG. Mr. Ismail Maalim Made, Permanent Secretary of the State Department of Youth, Creative Economy and Sport. Mr. Timothy Aacc, CEO of the Kenya Film Commission. Mrs. Angela Martin, Acting Director, Social Development, Culture and Sport of the African Union Commission. Excellencies and distinguished representatives of the African Union member states. Allow me to say a few words after having listened very carefully. The Acting Director, Mrs. Angela Martins, who took us through the journey to this day, but also about the Commission, the Temporary Secretariat, and its work. It's an honor for me and a great privilege to welcome you all to this event, marking these two-day events for the launch of the Temporary Secretary of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, the AACC. We have come a long way since the decision of the Executive Council and at its third ordinary session held on 10 to 12 July 2023 in Maputo, Mozambique, requesting for the establishment of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, as well as a fund to promote the cinema industry and television programs in Africa. The African Union Commission has since worked tirelessly towards the implementation of that decision to fulfill the commitment of our leaders to serve Africa and the Africans, leaving no one behind, to realize the Africa that we want all. The establishment of the AACC will be a critical milestone to consolidate the efforts by many countries and organizations to promote the African audiovisual works and cinema, as well as facilitate the contribution of the creative and cultural industries to the realization of the Africa we want. Allow me to express our sincere gratitude to the government of Kenya for their highly appreciated commitment to support the work of the Commission towards the establishment of the AACC by offering to host the temporary secretariat. And I'm honored to be leading the work of this secretary. Myself and the team are valuable experts seconded by the government of Kenya. We are committed to work closely with the African Union Commission and the State Department to ensure a smooth and efficient transition to the AACC. We are convinced that with the support and the contribution of all stakeholders, including those who have supported this today event, we will be successful in our journey. With your support, we have no doubt that the journey will be full of memorable and valuable steps that will lay down the foundations of a strong and effective AACC. We hope that very soon the Commission will be delighted to welcome you for the launch of the permanent secretary. For now, we sincerely call for your support, suggestion, contribution, and active participation to the work of the temporary secretariat. Karibuni, asanteni, thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amadou Cisse. Round of applause once again. He has reiterated his commitment to help us build the Africa we want by strengthening the audiovisual and cinema in Africa. And he's the man to talk to. He's the man to make sure you take his number. Filmmakers, powerful people. He's a man to talk to. He will help you. He says he wants your contribution to be able to make a difference for Africa. This is the beginning where we speak with one voice and make a difference. Our host today is very committed to making sure that film grows in Kenya, and none other than the Kenya Film Commission. And I'd like to invite the CEO, who's a good friend and man of great many achievements in the industry, none other than Mr. Timothy Owase, to come, and I invite the following dignitaries after that. Thank you.
Our chief guest for today, P.S. Ismail Made, Principal Secretary, Youth Affairs and Creative Economy, Minister of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports, Excellencies, Ambassadors and Heads of Missions present, Madam Angela Martins, leading the AU delegation in the country today, Madou Cisse, the head of the Secretariat, that is AACC, African filmmakers present, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Are you excited like I am? I'm so thrilled to be speaking to you this morning as we start off the launch of AACC, which is the African Audiovisual Cinema Commission, an institution that has been established by AU to basically emphasize and put into purpose the importance of audiovisual in Africa. From where I sit at Kenya Film Commission, we are so happy that we are hosting African Audiovisual Cinema Commission in Kenya, and that this is the beginning for Kenya and all African states to work together in celebrating African cinema. With this, we recognize the importance of this sector because it has huge capability of creating employment, uniting all Africans, and creating opportunities that can be able to help market the whole of Africa to the world. So let us champion the importance of this particular office, because it's going to give us huge opportunities to thrive through together. When I would like to put to you a very simple example. Tomorrow, let's say we have Cannes Film Festival and it's taking place in France, and we have African desk that is led by African Audiovisual Cinema Commission with all African states being represented. I believe this is going to be a milestone in a way that we can be able to work together, have the entire Africa represented in various programs, and also champion key policies that will be able to help the industry to grow. Having African Audiovisual Cinema Commission in Kenya gives us an opportunity to foster collaboration and see to it that different states in Africa are able to work together, expand the markets, and tell our original stories. Don't you believe we have many original stories that have not been told? We do have so many, and I believe we are going to utilize this opportunity to collaborate and see to it that we are able to tell these stories for marketability and have a huge market access. Let us do this together as we progress. My other key point that is critical is for us to look at diversity that Africa has and inclusivity, which is critical. Let us champion through storytelling that we are able to foster collaboration, foster inclusivity and diversity of African people, and have this expanded in a way that we are able to market Africa to the rest of the world. Film is the best form of marketing that any country, any company can be able to have. And as such, with that understanding, I'm rallying each one of us that let us support creatives in the industry and see to it that they are able to grow and do all that we expect. I know each African state has specific goals, but with the establishment of Aacc, this gives us an opportunity to actually have a unified African market, which will be able to champion all our aspirations and see to it that we are united through storytelling, and that storytelling is helping all Africans to create more opportunities for our young people who are yearning to tell out a call. And my call is to all African governments that we need to refocus our energies in putting measures in terms of policies, incentives, infrastructure, in terms of skills in Africa, as well as film markets, so that we are able to actually put our products emanating from our creatives, that they can be able to traverse the world in a way that we can be able to see. Let us support the industry, and as we support the industry, we are giving it an opportunity to actually give us more benefits. With those very many remarks, allow me now to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the entire team of African filmmakers who are part of the creation of Aacc, and also the team that has been behind the scene organizing this day that we are celebrating the launch of African Audiovisual Cinema Commission. With those very many remarks, allow me now to invite our chief guest, who is PS Ismail Mailim, to come and speak to us. Makofi kwake. Let's appreciate our PS as he comes.
Thank you very much, Bana Timothy. Ms. Angela Martins, head of AU delegation, and the entire AU delegation who are here today for this function. Mr. Amadou Sise, head of secretariat of AACC, sometimes here we also call it Aacc. So most of the times in my remarks when I refer to AACC, I will refer to it as Aacc. Board and Management of Kenya Film Commission, led by board members present here today and the CEO, Bwana Timothy Owase, CEOs from our different parastatals in the ministry. I have seen Madam Margaret Kiogora. I have also seen Madam Nelly from President's Awards Kenya. Senior ministry official led by my brother Raymond here and all other officials who are here. Filmmakers from across Africa. Our all invited guests, good morning. Let me begin by welcoming all of you to Nairobi City, which will be the home of the Africa Audiovisual and Cinema Commission of the African Union, popularly known as Aacc, or as I have said, Aacc. I'm happy to be part of this historic launch, which will be leveraging the creative economy towards solving African problems by tapping the audiovisual skills and talent across the continent for business, cultural exchange, and education. I dare say this Audiovisual Cinema Commission should deliberately target millions of young Africans who are looking for jobs and incomes to better their lives, those of their families, and better the economies of their respective countries in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, creative industry, which includes film, music, arts and crafts, advertising, design, entertainment, architecture, books, media, software, among many others, are vital forces in accelerating human development. Africa cannot sit back and watch as this fastest growing sector of global economy is raking in dollars for our good friends in the West and in the East. As we launch this historic secretariat, let us not sit back and expect it to grow slowly, but rather we must give ourselves high targets and review how it will have performed and the number of African talents it will have harnessed by this time next year. According to UNESCO, creative industries account for more than 30 million jobs globally, employing young people aged between 15 to 29 worldwide than any other sector. We should target this sector similarly, create fresh jobs for African creatives. The creative economy in Kenya, for example, is seen as a growing sector for economic growth and development. In the period between 2007 and 2009, the sector's earning was approximately Kenya shillings 85 billion. This represents 5.3% of our GDP. With appropriate institutional policy and regulatory research that the creative economy would become a lead employer in both formal and informal sectors for the national economy, while presenting employment opportunities for young Kenyans, and by extension for African youth. I therefore encourage the African Union member countries to develop strategies that can be implemented immediately and in the long term to create conducive environment for audiovisual investment to thrive. The film business people I speak to always point to, restrictive environment and bureaucratic hurdles that make film investment in Africa very difficult, expensive, and unattractive. This is the time to change for this great continent. There are no shortages of skills and talents in Africa. We have very rich and diverse cultures and dozens of untold stories of resilience, leadership, and many African success stories, as mentioned here by the CEO of Kenya Film Commission. If there is one thing I would request the Africa Audiovisual Commission to do, is to change the screen narrative of Africa. We are fatigued with audiovisual content portraying Africa as a failed continent, a dark mass of land full of corrupt people that's stricken by poverty, war, and disease. That narrative must change, and must change today, and it must change with Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission. Finally, as I conclude, to again Aacc Secretariat, Mr. Sise, please feel at home in this city, under the sun. We are here to fully support you. The government of Kenya reaffirms its commitment to seeing that the agency is fully supported to operate optimally for the betterment of the audiovisual sector in the entire continent. Karibu sana. As I have said, this continent offers a lot in audiovisual. The scenic environment in Africa cannot be compared with any other destinations. Therefore, I appeal to all of us, members of the African Commission, let us showcase this beauty of our continent. Let us show the world what we really have. Let us expose our beauty, our culture, you know, our environment. The young people in Africa, you will agree with me that the talent that we portray is unmatched. This talent needs to be tapped, supported, developed, nurtured, and helped to get money out of the talent that they hold. We must be very deliberate on how we approach audiovisual and film sector in the continent. It is our time now to make sure this sector that is not fully seen to its potential help to grow and help these millions of talent holders across the continent to get benefit of the beauty that God has given them as a unique talent to each one of them. So, Mr. Sise, again, we appeal to you and your commission to lay down the infrastructure and steps very quickly so that we're able to get the full benefit from this sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bernard. PS. Round of applause once again from Ismail. Thank you, Mr. Ismail Malim, for the wonderful words and for the warm welcome that you've extended to Aacc. Now, when I was growing up, Aacc was the All Africa Council of Churches. Do you remember that? So I'm glad that we've got a very creative way of saying double A, double C. I can't see what you're saying. Just come closer. So, karibu sana, as he said, to Kenya. But you've already been here before, kidogo. You know some Swahili, I think, already. Yes, yes. So feel very welcome. And indeed, this is the beginning of a new thing. You know, they say, there's an African saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to make an impact and go further, have more impact, walk together. And this is what we're doing. We are walking together. There's a very important quote that I keep telling young people about the storyteller. The story and the narrative that is being told really creates the picture that you have of a person or a place or something. And it says, this is Steve Jobs who said this. In 1994, this is before he bought Pixar. He said, the most important person in the world is the storyteller. Why? The storyteller sets the vision, the values, and the agenda of the entire generation that is to come. And then he said, and Disney has a monopoly on the storytelling business. And he bought Pixar. You get what I'm saying? Now, we know that the story that is told of us is not our story. But now we have double A, double C to ensure that our story is out there. And because we are working together, we shall go far and we shall have an impact. Thank you very much, dignitaries, for those wonderful words. We would like to have a photo session of you over here. And I'd like to invite the entire front row to please come on stage. I will be advised whether anybody else needs to join that group. As you come up, please come up, please come up. And the cameraman will help us. Professor Nancy Booker, the Dean of the Aga Khan Media and Communications Graduate School, is also here. Welcome, madam. Oh, there you are. Welcome, welcome. So please come to the stage. We shall be advised on how we shall be taking this group photo. Is there anybody else I need on the stage? Yes, some KFC board members. Madam Nelly, please come onto the stage. Can we do it in phases? Do we do it in phases? Okay. Just one big one. Okay, one big one. All right. I hope you can find a space there. So as the photograph is being taken, let me move out of the way, actually. Okay, smile, please, ladies and gentlemen. Please smile. It's a big day. It's a happy day. Please give them a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's a big day of excitement. We are launching and starting something that will make a difference for Africa. What we shall be doing, because I'm sure he has got other things that he needs to run to. I can imagine. But let me tell you what we shall be doing as soon as we come back from the tea. Now, this tea break will be very interesting. We will just go and get tea and come back and sit. So it's not like we're going to go away for 15 minutes or whatever it is. We will just get your cup of tea and come back and sit, and then we start. So, Bwana PS, today we have got a very, very full program with some very, very serious people coming in. We'll be having a round table engagement of stakeholders in the audiovisual and cinema industry, and they'll be talking about what this portends, what this means. We'll also have an engagement with media stakeholders and what that means for media. And then, of course, we shall have a consideration of action points to help us to upscale the audiovisual and cinema industry through AA and CC, and that's what we shall be doing today. Then tomorrow you shall be coming together with our CS, we presume, and we shall actually launch AA, CC, and that shall launch us into the future and make a difference for Africa. So thank you very much, and we are very happy under the auspices of the AU and the auspices of KFC to be able to be a part of this to make the future bright. So ladies and gentlemen, we shall have a quick health break. I would like to give you maybe 10 minutes. Am I allowed 10 minutes? Yes, 10, 15 minutes. Then we come back and I'll invite Brother Nicholas Moyo, who will be coming to take us through the next session of stakeholders in the industry. Please give yourselves a round of applause. This is a great momentous occasion. We are going to make a difference. 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. It is now, what time is it now? It's now exactly 10:25. Let's be back here at 10:35. And we start. 10:35, we start the next session. Thank you very much. from the audio, visual, and cinema industry sector. Some from here, some from outside Kenya, from across Africa. And to lead us in that session will be a gentleman who is very tall. So I need to tell you, sir, you need to get insurance because this place, you might be hitting your head. You're a very tall man. Okay, so be careful. He is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Sports, Recreation, Arts, Culture from Zimbabwe. And I will be inviting him in a little while. I don't want to invite you right yet. Please turn to somebody next to you, ladies and gentlemen. Turn to somebody next to you and tell them, what do you think a united African visual arts, audiovisual and cinema industry will look like? A united industry. What will it look like? What do you think? What do the person next to you think? Good to see you. Please tell somebody, talk to somebody. What do you think it looks like? What does our future look like? What is the Africa we want? What is the Africa we want? Big market. Yes, a bigger market. My goodness, that's a very good one. A very big market. What else? Who else? Who else would like to say something? Maybe I can come down there. Huh? What did you say? Better tariffs. You'll see money flowing more than a flooded Tanarifa. What's your name, sir?
Dandaura.
Dandaura. Thank you, Dandaura from Nigeria. Yes, I'm coming back to the CEO. A bigger market, what else?
A connected Africa through stories.
A connected Africa through stories. Isn't that incredible? And that is what we want to see, a connected Africa. Whether we're speaking the same language, that someone in Nigeria will understand Kiswahili. And so on and so forth. What else do you think, madam? What happens? What Africa do we want?
Africa, I want. My English is very bad, sorry.
Speak in French, speak in French.
Wow. A united Africa.
A united Africa. Thank you very much. You can speak in French, by the way, no problem. We have a translator. Oh, by the way, translation, channel 1 English, channel 2 French. If you have, if someone speaks French, you can use the... George. What do you want to see from Africa? What kind of Africa what Africa do we want using audiovisual and cinema? Hold on.
Implement the African Free Trade Agreement with respect to digital arts. We need lower taxes, eliminate the permit fees that are very high right now, withholding taxes excessively high. So we need to actually put teeth to the speaking about implementing all these things.
So you're talking about policy, having policies and tariffs that are helpful.
Can we have an established database of African cultural legends so we can keep up with the market? Because if you look at international markets, they have a lot of cultural adaptations and we're lacking in that. And then, yes, so like mythology, history, all that stuff. If you look at Greek and Roman and Norse, right? Then, yes. Then is there also a fund for book and comic adaptions? That's another place where we're lacking and we have so much material.
Books and comics, huh? So that is what is called when you adaptation of good books and comics. That's a very good one. Thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause. This side they're thinking very hard. What else on this side? George, I know you want to say something. I really want to apologize. I should have asked you to introduce yourself so that people can get to know who you are. Okay? So I'll come. Yeah, please introduce yourself very quickly. Just tell us. You can stand when you're introducing yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elias. I'm the chair of the Kenya Scriptwriters Guild.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chief Nyamoya. I'm the chairman of the Association of Animators of Kenya.
So animators and scriptwriters. Excellent.
Hello, everyone. My name is Helen Kelly. I'm an actor. So for me, I would like to see better opportunities for African storytellers, not just people who come from out there, better opportunities for African storytellers across the spectrum, from scriptwriters, from my brother in digital over there, to actors, to photographers across the board.
Yes, and what Timothy told us is that when you have a bigger market, or when you say bigger market, that means more opportunity. Thank you very much. George, you want to say something? and introduce yourself. Oh, sorry, I'm calling you the wrong name. Mr. Kimani.
Good morning. My name is Kimani. I'm part of the Distributors Guild of Kenya. And what I would like to see is a borderless Africa. So it's not about Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Nigeria. We are one. That comes with, we need to have one big platform where all our content goes to. One borderless platform. Otherwise, we'll always be begging the internationals.
Okay, I know you. I don't need to be so diplomatic. You are trying to be diplomatic, but so you're saying we should have our own African platform. So we don't wait for the international platforms to come and have mercy on us with the money that they have. I hear what you're saying. Anybody here from those platforms? I can see a hand over there. So I think this will be the second last. Are we ready, Charity? Okay, good. So this will be the second last gentleman over here. Introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Gabriel Dinda. I represent Writers Guild Kenya. And what I look forward to is a story where, an Africa where little unknown stories go out there to inspire the world.
Inspire the world. Inspiration, little but huge. Lucy, do you have anything to say? Okay, so all right. So we have filmmakers from Uganda. Where are my Ugandan friends? They were here earlier. They decided to take our tea and disappear. sorry, I apologize. Yes, say something in French, yeah? Okay, Comoros.
Merci. Excusez-moi, je vais m'exprimer en français. Dr Touaoulou Mzehamadi, directeur général du Centre national de documentation et de recherche scientifique, au sein duquel se trouve l'iconothèque, l'audiovisuel. Je pense que l'Afrique que nous devons vouloir avoir, c'est une Afrique créative et innovante, qui pourrait offrir un potentiel important pour la croissance économique et le développement social. Et sur ce, nous avons besoin d'une Afrique qui pourrait se servir de nos richesses potentielles dont nous disposons pour pouvoir développer notre Afrique.
Merci beaucoup. That was very, very well said. Using creativity and innovation to be able to utilize the riches that Africa has. That's very, very, very. Thank you very much for telling us that. Jen, you really want to say something? You know, Jen is like the mother of the industry, yeah? So we can't say no to Jen. I've seen my Ugandan friends. How are you? Are you fine?
Thank you. Not really. I just want to echo what everybody is saying. But you know, sometimes, and especially for filmmakers and the people in the creative sector, the space is not given. So when it's not given, then you ask for it. But I wanted to say, when we started this journey, I'm seeing a lot of young people here. This journey started way back in 2007. So it's not something new. And the idea was actually just what we are talking about here, what everybody wants to see. Even at that point, there was no Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, but the creatives, especially people in the film industry, really knew the space that they wanted. So for me, I think where we are now is a good space, and not just saying what we want, the stories we want to tell. I want to point us to the African Union Agenda 2063. For those who have not seen it, those who do not know about it, it is the blueprint for where Africa wants to go. And African filmmakers should not be left behind. Because you know what? We keep quiet, we do nothing about things, then we complain. Agenda 2063, they say it's a people's agenda. Any filmmaker, any creative can take it and run with it, because this is the only way Africa can come together. It's the only way we can do what we are saying we want to do. And I just wanted to say, we want to pass on the baton, but pass on the baton with history. Africa sometimes forgets its history, and it's not a good thing. We pass on the baton so that we can then move into the future with some knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane Monene. She's very well known, part of FEPASI, in fact, one of the founding catalysts for FEPASI. I have a gentleman from Uganda, finally. My Ugandan friend, what do you like to say, very briefly?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aaron J. Tamale. I'm a Ugandan filmmaker, but currently practicing in Nairobi, Kenya, because, you know, the industry is controlled from here. But I think what I envision within this space and to see how the future unfolds is that one of the things that I've been thinking about is having increased revenue, streams of revenue from indigenous high net worth individuals, because I don't think we tap into them a lot as African filmmakers. If Dangote can invest in cement, why can't he invest in film? If Motsepe can invest in, you know, in whatever he's investing in, why can't he invest in us? So it's just looking at all the billionaires across the continent, the people who have money, and building a solid case on why there is need to invest in our creative industries away from the regular people, and also probably tapping into a community cinema structure, because there is no revenue for a filmmaker without, if there is no cinema structure that is not just private, but also probably the government pushing extensively within that space. Thank you. Aaron, you can call me Tamale.
Mr. Tamale, round of applause for Bana Tamale. Please write those things down, because they'll form part of our resolutions today, my friend. Those are very, very important points you brought up. Very, very important. Philanthropy, you've heard of raising money for your films. There's, what are the platforms that people raise money for in their films? Zippy, how did you raise your money for your film? What are they called, those platforms? Like, give me a name. A platform where you raise money. Huh? Yeah, GoFundMe, yeah, things like those, you know? Yeah, so he's talking about high net worth people putting money into film. Ask Diamond, he knows how to get people with high net worth to put money into his music. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman who's going to steer us through this session and pretty much enable us as stakeholders in the audiovisual and cinema industry is none other than, I told you, the Permanent Secretary from Zimbabwe, Nicholas. Take us to the next level. Round of applause for Mr. Nicholas Moyo.
Where do I?
Oh, you can also say, but watch your head, watch your head.
You know, when you are not gifted with the presidential height, you have to be watching above. Thank you so much. Allow me to invite the panelists.
I think the information is there. It's just a matter of getting it into the right hands and turning it around in the way that we want to turn it around. So with PESP, we are given a figure that's similar to our budget. So it's usually around the amount of 150 million rand. And we have to create usually between 9,000 to 11,000 jobs with that program. So we fund filmmakers to employ others, to create jobs, right? And on average, every time we release a call for PESP, we have 150 million rand available. We have to create between 9,000 and 11,000 jobs. But every call, on average, the request for funding comes to 5 billion rand. And the promise for jobs comes to 51,000. So 150 million versus 5 billion. 9,000 jobs versus 51,000. It just shows you the gap between the potential or the demand from practitioners and the supply, right? What's readily available now. And the supply that's from one entity. I mean, in South Africa, you have quite a number of funding organizations, but NFEF is the national funding body. So in terms of your question, that speaks to what does Africa want? I think Africa wants a film industry, first of all, that is as respected as other industries are. That's the most important thing, right? Is when our president speaks at SONA, the State of the Nation address, film has to come out as pronounced as other industries do, as manufacturing does, as mining does, as all of these industries do, because the job creation aspect is very, very clear. The number of people that you can create, the jobs you can create on a film set, it's something that we don't necessarily need to overstate. So that is the journey that we are walking towards as the NFEF. We have established quite a number of partnerships to extend our hand where our budget doesn't reach. It's a long journey, but it's a journey that we think is worth it. The gentleman was speaking about how Africa is the youngest continent in the world. It absolutely is. So in the future, the future obviously is looking towards this continent, but it means that we need to be a bit more aggressive as to how we capitalize on how important this industry is and what it can do for us, and how we capitalize on it and don't wait for other people to capitalize on it for us. We do quite a number of roadshows for PSP, and I was recently in the Northern Cape, which is one of the most underserviced provinces. I was also in Mpumalanga. Northern Cape has about just over 1 million people, and not one cinema there. So currently you have Mpumalanga, which has just over 5 million people. You have about 3 cinemas, formal cinemas from formal organizations. We're currently going through a phase in South Africa where one of the big cinema franchises is closing down 9 cinemas across the country and retrenching about 236 people. So a lot of, in being aggressive and defining the Africa we want, one of the things we have to do is change our perspective as to what those challenges mean. If cinemas are closing down from organizations that have held the monopoly for cinema for so long, it means then that it's an opportunity for a lot more young people, previously disadvantaged people, to get into the game and capitalize on that. China has built about 1,400 cinemas since 2019. 1,400 cinemas, because they've caught on the value of what actual cinema activity. It's not to say that the value of streamers is not important. We can see it, but ultimately in South Africa we still have in most African countries, to be honest, we still have quite intense bandwidth internet challenges, where cinema, it's still a good time for cinema to capitalize on those. So China has built about 1,400 cinemas since 2019. It's quite observant as to what works very well in Nigeria. They've been quite observant into what works very well into India. And there's still a huge opportunity for that to happen in South Africa. lots of underutilized land, particularly in underserviced provinces like the Northern Cape, like Mpumalanga, like Free State, like the Northwest, where a lot of cinema studios can be set up, right, to activate more, to allow for more activation into this industry. Get a lot more people employed on a large scale basis. Our payoff line as the NFVF is Love SA Film, and it's one of my favorites because it's not a suggestion. We are instructing people to love South African film. And that also speaks to how we need to be a bit more aggressive and daring in how we position the industry, and how we position it not only globally, not only across the continent, not only with other countries, but even to ourselves, as a reminder that we do produce great work. Thank you.
Yes, let's put our hands together. Love local content. That's the start-off point. If all of the 54 of us drive an agenda for people to love local content, it will then be easy for them to love African content. As we extend, thank you very much, Onse. And another thing that just came out very clearly is the issue of the place for cinemas. How cinemas as a platform need to be re-engineered to draw. It's not all of us that have access to data in Africa. And even people that have, gives a different experience to decide, I'm actually going to watch a movie elsewhere. You know, just being in that community with others where you sit and enjoy, it still gives a different feel. And people still want to consume film in cinemas. And you also bring the issue that it may be interesting how many of us here, or Madame Angela, how many of our African countries, the 54 of them, can make an analysis, 55, sorry, can make an analysis of the last presidential statements, whether it's the State of the Nation address, whether it was at their independence. If all of us pick the last presidential address and check in all the 55 speeches, how many of those speeches make reference to the creative industries, and we start our conversation from there, you'll realize maybe the whole of Africa, it may be less than 10%. That's where it's important. If we don't bring these things into the national agenda, I think that's what he's saying, we'll be fighting behind, still fighting for small things. So thank you so much for your presentation. Let me allow Mr. Timothy Owase from the Kenyan Film Commission to take us through.
Thank you. Is it on? You can hear me? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Timothy Owase. I'm the current CEO of Kenya Film Commission, and the Kenya Film Commission is a catalyst for development and growth of the local film industry in Kenya. We also market Kenya as a filming destination. First of all, allow me to appreciate the role film plays in our economy as a country and Africa at large. The Kenya government recognizes the importance of this sector, and that's why we look at the storytelling sector as a sector that can be able to drive both social and economic well-being of our people. And this basically can go beyond Kenya and address a myriad of challenges that Africa faces as far as economic joblessness and issues of economic development are concerned. So what are some of the key instruments that I'm looking at as critical factors to help grow the audiovisual sector in Africa? I'll start off by availability of funding mechanisms. This will be able to help enable investments into the sector, and thus a key focus factor will be that we champion availability of funding mechanisms to the creatives so that the creative industry can be able to access funds that will be able to help them come up with products that can be marketed beyond our individual countries and beyond Africa. When we do this, then we'll be championing real business, and also we'll be able to avail our products to our people. And beyond that, enable Africans to connect, access products that they love, and at the same time, utilize these products to really understand one another. So this will actually act as a unifying factor. The instrument number 2 that I will be able to focus on is policies and legislative frameworks among our countries. I think for you to have a very solid industry, you need a framework that will be able to guide the industry, will be able to show focus as to where we are heading and how we can be able to really invest into the area and allow the creators to be able to do business by way of an organized industry. This basically I'm addressing all African nations because we are all at different status as far as legislative and policy frameworks are concerned. I'm very certain that there are countries within Africa that have never dared to even put a framework in place to really have a policy that will be able to guide on how we should be able to run the audiovisual industry. So that is a critical area that we should be able to focus on. And with this, I must say that we need to mainstream audiovisual sector in a way that it is a force that can be able to change our fortunes as far as job creation and investment is concerned. Remember, when we talk about storytelling, audiovisual production is one of those industries that can be able to help drive all other sectors. Think about service industries, think about manufacturing, and also think about tourism and so on. When you look at different revenue streams, you realize that through audiovisual productions, you are able to get direct income, indirect income, and also induced income through various elements. That's why, as Africa, we should be able to give value to storytelling as a critical factor for marketing Africa, for branding Africa, so that we are properly understood, because for a very long time we've been misunderstood. The other critical instrument is key protection of our intellectual property, because without proper protection of our intellectual property, then we may not be able to secure our wealth. We may come up with very good products, but these products, if they are not properly secured, then we may not be able to make much out of that. So intellectual property rights and copyright, that is a very critical factor that we should not forget. The other instrument that I will also focus on is collaborations among African countries. We need to champion more co-productions. I would like to see South African producer collaborating with his counterpart in Nigeria, Kenya, Zimbabwe, among others, so that we have African stories being told by real African people in a way that we are telling an African story. And when we do that, we have a huge market in Africa that can be able to consume this content in a manner that can be able to give us a lot of value. The other critical factor is that we need to be able to have a mechanism as an instrument to collect, preserve, and have access to our content. Currently, most of our countries don't have a repository services that will be able to actually collect content that has been produced, have a mechanism for preservation, and again allow the audiences to be able to access at this particular content using technology. So that is another critical instrument that I believe we can be able to utilize and see to it that we are progressing together. My other key factor here is, other than intellectual property, is education. Think about workforce development. And when I talk about workforce development, I'm referring to a situation where we have skilled manpower in a sense that you have skilled manpower that is deliberately put in place to be able to come up with products that can be really sold to whichever market, and in a way that you are not doing this in a very haphazard manner. African countries to have critical educational programs in schools, universities, TVET institutions, in a manner that we are building capacity to be able to accommodate any kind of production. And when we do this, then we allow our collaboration with other nations beyond Africa in a manner that we can be able to service any size of production. Lastly, allow me also to state the fact that we must be able to allow mutual exchange among African nations when it comes to content, because production is never a one-man show. So mine is to rally all African states that with the introduction of African Audiovisual Cinema Commission, this is a very good starting point that we need to be able to do exchange programs that allow us to connect and do business together through various markets. Kenya already has the Kalasha International Film and TV market, and mine is to start right now by rallying you to actually come to Kenya next year and be part of the Kalasha International Film and TV market, as much as we collaborate with other nations as well, like South Africa, Nigeria, to really do serious storytelling business in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We can do better than that. Let's put our hands. Interesting, I think, Mr. Timothy, the real deal is the value chain in the film industry. I think very clear you spoke about the value chain. We need to come to a point where in our nations and in Africa, we define it, we identify the players at each level and support and grow those levels. That speaks to the entirety of the industry. You talked about the policies. It's a low-hanging fruit. I think you are passionate. I think as the commission, you know how policies in nations are going to help turn around the fortunes of the people. You talked about job creation. He says one of the key things is to address joblessness in our African countries. That's very important. If you look at the national agenda of almost all African countries, is to address the issue of unemployment. And here we have an industry that we need to span up to ensure that we have statistics also of the capacity that this industry has. And that was very clear. You know, by the way, in terms of policy, in Zimbabwe, I have the National Arts Council here. They are pushing an agenda to create the first film strategy in the nation that should then build policies and commissions within, and it's a direction that you are pointing out that is important as African nations, that we create regulatory frameworks that are going to help the growth of the industry. We'll come back to you later as we look at also the other issue that just came now, is the decent work for creatives. Let me go to our next presenter. Perhaps let's go to DRC. Or you wanted to immediately speak? Okay, you have the mic. So I'll come to you, Mrs. Magdalene.
Thank you very much. I am the director of the David Polmart Institute. The David Polmart is a co-production and finance market for African content. It's a place where filmmakers from the continent come together to do business. It's a place where projects in development pitch to financiers, funders, sales agents, streamers, in order for them to get their product out. So when I was thinking about the session today, I looked at distribution on our continent and how the distribution models have changed. I see this among some of the filmmakers who are applying to DFM and want to engage with financiers at the DFM. Many years ago, the focus was on cinema and cinema theaters. The focus was on television. In Africa, there's about 1,500 cinema theaters. And my colleagues have already mentioned how this has changed. Since COVID, cinemas are closing down. People don't have money to go to cinemas anymore. Contents that's going to cinemas are more Hollywood driven instead of African content. We find that our cinemas don't celebrate our own content. And this is a problem for us. It's a problem for our filmmakers when cinemas move the focus from African content. I think this is where our governments need to play a more stronger role and try to create quotas for cinemas so that they focus on African content. This disruption that's happened in the last few years where the streamers have now come in. We know that Netflix, Showmax have played a very big role in the distribution of film content. Filmmakers want to engage with Netflix. At Durban Film Art, when we had a session with Netflix, the space was packed. But when we are talking about something else, there's not much engagement. It's just because Netflix has come in and they've invested so much money. Stats have showed that they've invested $175 million in the continent's film production and creating over 12,000 jobs on the continent. This is good that the streamers are doing that, but my question to our government is, what are we doing on the continent? Netflix is an international broadcast, an international streamer. What are we doing as governments to give funds to our filmmakers? At the Durban Film Art, we try to bring through these funders and financiers. We don't find many funds in Africa. So that means Africa is not investing in its own content. How can we promote our content if from a national government perspective, there's not enough funds that are going into the production of it? We want to see co-production, and my colleague here, Mr. Awasi, has mentioned this already. What happens with filmmakers is because when we don't find funds within our continent, we start going outside of our continent. We start doing co-productions with Europe. That is good because there's money there, but that comes with its own challenges. IP, where does that IP sit? We as Africans don't keep that IP anymore because the co-productions has now taken over. Some of these co-production treaties or funds stipulate that filming needs to be in their country. So that means the development and the creation of content or the job creation within our continent, within our African countries are not happening because it is going to a country outside of Africa. The money that's supposed to come back into our economy is moving out of Africa with this co-production. I am so excited that we have this Aacc being launched today because now we as Africans can look at ways in which we can create co-productions. How are we going to now bring African filmmakers together and say, let's work together to keep the IP, to keep the economy, to keep the development within our continent? The streamers, as I mentioned, have really disrupted the way we are working. But what we need to realize that within our continent, piracy is so huge. And that is now taking away from our filmmakers. It's taking away from our economy. It's taking away funding that can go back into the industry to support our film industry. So I think as a government, we need to clamp down on piracy. We need to clamp down on downloading on the internet. There's so many platforms on the internet, illegal sites that you can get content from. I think this is something that we need to be addressing. The other issue is, for me, that I picked up is recently we are looking at Canal Plus, who's coming in and has brought over MultiChoice. MultiChoice, who has been a strong platform for content in our continent. Now what's going to happen, we're going to have a platform, a broadcaster from outside of our continent taking our content, and that IP is now going to be sitting outside of our continent. We need, as Africans, we need, as our government, to protect this, to protect our filmmakers from losing the IP that belongs to them. Our archives, most of our African archives are sitting outside of our continent again. How can we, as the Aacc, work together to bring this back into our continent and help our filmmakers? You know, we hear so many filmmakers speak about them spending so much money just to bring, when they're doing a documentary and they want to access the archives, they have to pay for our own content. That doesn't make sense, right? How do we, as now our national body, support our filmmakers? So I think that as the Durban Film Arts, we try our best to engage with government, and now with the Aacc, we want to engage with you to see how we can work with you to create sustainable models of filmmaking, distribution, and job creation within our continent. We want to, we have filmmakers who come to us, and we provide platforms of capacity building opportunities for them. But then once we have those, they have to go away from our continent to create it. So I'm hoping that this opportunity for us to make a difference as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Makatalan. Very interesting way of looking at things and issues that you just brought out. And I would like to just flag the fear that at times when we talk about collaboration, because either our creatives, producers have failed to find local funders, then they reach out to international funders. And some of the dangers that then we've seen is either commissioned work with different agendas, you know, because the person who has put the money then decide, can you change and alter your script here to focus on some of those issues? That becomes one of the issues that I think are celebrating, it's called Aacc, huh? Aacc will be some of the issues that need to be looked at and say, who can tell our story better? If we say we've been misunderstood, I think it's also you talked about, you know, our stories have been misunderstood. Because when there is a vacuum, someone will always fill it with their own information. Then they continue to tell our story. So thank you, Magdalene, for bringing on those issues. But also, we realize that many Africans are actually in very senior positions in some of these international platforms. You know that. If you go to YouTube, Netflix, there's so many Africans who are holding key positions in some of those. We've had so many Africans that have been also key in creating those platforms. Yet we sit here, and earlier on we were hearing, why don't we have a platform in Africa? Maybe later when we will come back to these questions. We have also talked about IP, high piracy in Africa. With the advent of technology, what is our thinking in fighting technology with technology? We cannot sit and still look and say piracy in Africa, but what also are we doing? What mechanisms are we creating ourselves? We may not eliminate, we may not eradicate, but we can go a long way in trying to reduce and mitigate in order to harness the resources within the sector. Let me, at this juncture, invite our colleague from the DRC, Mr. Kanyinda, to give us your experiences and the instruments that are very key in turning around the economy of this sector in Africa in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want you to put your headphones because I'm going to speak in French instead of speaking Lingala or Swahili. And I would like, first of all,
Sorry, may I have headsets for my team here? Thank you.
You in this room, if there is someone can raise his hand, and if he went for the last week to watch an African film, directed by an African, written by an African, and produced by an African in a room, in a cinema, in this room. There is someone? We have 3 people, 5, 6, 7 in this room, and we are talking about market. I think that's what we face. Give me, first of all, the legitimacy to give my congratulations to those who fight for us to be on this place today. Je suis Baloufou Bakouba du Congo. J'ai une expérience de producteur, de réalisateur aussi avec le Kenya. J'ai produit ici un documentaire sur Boki Bationgo en 2003, quand Boki Bationgo est revenu d'exil, après 22 ans d'exil. Donc j'étais ici, j'ai produit son homecoming qui a fini presque dans une tentative d'assassinat, et ça a été un grand événement ici au Kenya. J'ai beaucoup de liens avec les Kenyans, je suis venu ici souvent, et j'ai acheté le droit du roman Matigari de Ngugi Bationgo pour faire un film. J'ai introduit Matigari ici pour parler de la coproduction. Avant le Covid, si nous prenons le Covid comme un terme, et on a essayé de monter ces films en coproduction avec l'Afrique du Sud et le Nigeria. Vous pouvez remarquer, maintenant je sais que le Kenya et l'Afrique du Sud ont signé un accord. La plupart des pays africains ont des accords de coproduction avec les pays européens. Mais ils n'ont pas des accords de coproduction avec l'Afrique. C'est-à-dire, je peux parler de néocolonialisme, mais c'est pire que ça. C'est la décolonisabilité. C'est le désir de refuser de se décoloniser. Et ça, au-delà des discours de... Moi, j'ai 40 ans de ces métiers. Et je voudrais ici, parce que je suis là et je crois que j'ai la légitimité de parler en leur nom, ici, de rendre d'abord hommage à mes aînés. Il y a dans cette salle Jane Mounen, il y a Lebone, il y a Pognon, il y a Angela Matrix. Cette histoire qui nous fait asseoir aujourd'hui a commencé très très longtemps. Quand ma génération est arrivée au cinéma dans les années 80, Saint-Ben Ousmane, Medo Ondo, Ola Balogun, Kouansa, Lionel Kagane, tous nos aînés étaient déjà presque fatigués de parler aux institutions africaines sur la nécessité que l'Afrique puisse avoir son propre reflet dans sa propre miroir. Parce que le problème de l'Afrique, parce qu'on aime beaucoup parler de marché, le problème de l'Afrique n'est pas économique. Le problème de l'Afrique, c'est que l'Afrique, dont nous parlons aujourd'hui, et l'Afrique que nous voulons, est colonisée par l'image de l'autre. Cette image du blanc, du colonisateur, nous arrive par le cinéma et la télévision. Il n'y a que deux moyens de ramener un peuple à se regarder. deux méthodes, le cinéma et la télévision. Il n'y a pas d'autre moyen. Ah, on est passé du film pellicule en numérique, mais ces deux choses-là ne changeront pas. Ne changeront pas. Quelle est notre propre perception de nous-mêmes? Pour avoir un marché, le marché est un résultat. C'est pas un début, c'est un résultat. Ça veut dire quoi? Je pense que Timothée l'a dit ici, il faut d'abord former. J'ai enseigné, je continue à enseigner le cinéma en Afrique, mais qu'est-ce qu'on enseigne? La plupart des universités en Afrique, la plupart des écoles forment des gens qui vont se retrouver au chômage. Un système qui fabrique des chômeurs, c'est un système en faillite. Et ça, c'est la plupart des choses que nous avons dans ce continent. Ce que je veux dire tout simplement, nos aînés, jusqu'à Jacques Béanzin, ont voulu que ce moment arrive. Je vais vous épargner beaucoup de combats, beaucoup de déceptions. L'Afrique a la science d'une bureaucratie qui ne connaît pas les temps, qui ne sait pas planifier. Mais les cinéastes ont le malheur d'avoir le temps. Quand vous êtes cinéaste, une des premières leçons que vous savez, c'est gérer le temps. Le temps d'un film, le temps d'un tournage, le temps d'une écriture, tout est sur le temps. Nous nous sommes retrouvés, avec l'aide du gouvernement du Kenya, que je remercie ici, à Addis Abeba en 2018 pour faire la grande plaidoirie qui nous amène aujourd'hui ici. Mais quand nous étions à Addis Abeba, il y avait déjà plus de 25-30 ans, et ça a été un moment émouvant. Angela Merkel sous John Mounene peuvent le témoigner, et il a fallu encore attendre 6 ans pour que nous arrivions ici. C'est que moi je vais dire à la commission que nous mettons en place, c'est d'éviter les erreurs de toute notre bureaucratie. D'écouter, vous savez, être en retard souvent peut devenir un avantage. L'Afrique est en retard, mais l'Afrique peut s'inspirer. Quand nous disons l'Afrique, parfois nous avons tort, parce que l'Afrique c'est comme une... Et tous ces arbres n'ont pas la même valeur. Est-ce qu'au Kenya, on parle cinéma de la même façon qu'au Zimbabwe? Est-ce que la politique du cinéma d'Afrique du Sud est la même que celle du Bénin? Donc, je pense qu'il faudrait que cette commission écoute les praticiens, écoute les hommes et les femmes qui sont sur le terrain, et que nous ne nous enfermons pas dans la pratique bureaucratique qui souvent pose beaucoup de problèmes à notre pays. Ici, je vais juste vous rappeler, parce que beaucoup de choses très importantes, très fortes ont été dites ici. Je n'ai pas le temps de le rappeler, mais je pense que ça vous a beaucoup touché et que l'Afrique est plein d'exemples. Il y a le NVF en Afrique du Sud, il y a le Centre de la cinématographie du Maroc. L'Afrique est plein d'exemples qui peuvent nous inspirer. Qui peuvent nous inspirer et nous amener de l'avant. Regardons d'abord qu'est-ce qu'on a fait de mieux en Afrique et comment on l'a fait. Comment on s'est inspiré avant de tomber peut-être dans ce qui nous plaira pas, qui serait la bureaucratie, le fonctionnariat, et ça c'est des choses que les cinéastes ne peuvent pas supporter. Il a été dit ici, je crois que c'est M. Timothée qui l'a dit ici, et je le remercie pour ça, sur la créativité. Vous savez, quand vous allez à l'école de cinéma ou dans toute école, il faut avoir le talent. Les talents, on l'a ou on l'a pas. L'école vous donne les clés. L'école vous donne les clés. Mais il y a une chose que l'école vous donne, c'est l'histoire de votre métier. Aujourd'hui, on a l'impression que l'Afrique dont le plus grand diffuseur est un diffuseur français qui est Canal+. Juste pour vous rappeler, le patron de Canal+, c'est quelqu'un de notoirement raciste et d'extrême droite. Donc vous pouvez comprendre la logique. Aujourd'hui, Canal+ a acheté Litchi Choice et il domine le marché africain sur de l'esthétique non africaine et sur un paradigme non africain. Aujourd'hui, il est difficile pour un réalisateur africain ou un producteur de trouver une coproduction avec les sociétés européennes sur un sujet sérieux. On a réduit l'Afrique au comique. On a réduit l'Afrique au comique abidjanais. C'est, vous ouvrez la télévision, vous ouvrez Canal+, vous n'avez pas envie de rester 10 minutes. Ça vous fait déjà mal à la tête. Donc, la Commission devrait réfléchir. L'Afrique que nous voulons, c'est l'Afrique africaine. L'Afrique a énormément d'histoires à raconter. L'Afrique doit être leader dans les documentaires. Parce que l'Afrique n'a pas encore documenté l'Afrique. Même quand on regarde les safaris, les animaux du Kenya, c'est une caméra de la BBC, c'est National Geographic. C'est pas les Kenyans qui nous dit, voilà. D'ailleurs, je vais terminer par là. Le Kenya, je dirais pour moi, est le pays le plus vu en télévision. Mais on ne voit jamais un Kenyan parler. On voit les jumping Maasai, on voit les girafes, on voit, et quelquefois quand vous êtes à l'aéroport de Nairobi, si vous écoutez quelquefois les conversations des touristes, c'est « How about your lion? How about your giraffe ?» C'est ça la conversation. Nous voulons voir les girafes du Kenya regardées par un Kenyan. Je pense que ce ne serait pas la même chose. Moi, je ne filme pas un Africain de la même façon qu'un blanc. Je n'ai pas la même rétine qu'un blanc. J'ai la rétine de l'Africain. Donc, c'est aussi très important que des pays comme le Kenya, l'Afrique du Sud, comprennent que même un animal, la façon dont on le regarde, on regarde ta faune, ta flore, tu dois aussi documenter toi-même. Documenter toi-même ton propre regard. Parce que le marché, nous, ma génération, on s'est battu à Lagos entre ceux qui disaient film is business and film is art. But definitely making a film is a political art. Pour la simple raison, c'est la représentation de l'image de toi-même. C'est l'image de toi-même, le cinéma. C'est pas juste un divertissement, mais on est en train de plonger l'Afrique dans un divertissement sans ventre, d'autodérision, d'une comédie suppurante. Et nous aimerions que la commission, notre commission, que nous mettons aujourd'hui en place, puisse changer de regard sur l'Afrique. Je vais juste terminer comme je viens d'un pays qui est la République démocratique du Congo, qui est un très grand pays, 150 millions d'habitants. Kinshasa, la capitale du Congo, a 15 millions d'habitants. Ces 15 millions d'habitants n'ont pas une salle de cinéma. L'imaginaire congolais est construit sur 80% de musique populaire. Je ne parle pas de musique savante, musique populaire. C'est important la musique populaire au Congo. Elle accompagne tous les jeux de la vie, elle accompagne l'indépendance, elle accompagne tous les mouvements. Mais c'est une musique endormissante. Il y a 15 millions de gens à Kinshasa, ils n'ont pas une salle de théâtre. Il y a 15 millions d'habitants qui sont pas une salle de cinéma, je le sais, parce que je travaille actuellement pour le compte du gouvernement à ouvrir des salles. Donc, si on prend le cas du Congo, on compare à un autre pays, le Congo est en retard évidemment, mais le Congo en soi, je reviens au fameux marché, le Congo est un marché important. Un marché important. Et nous pouvons terminer en disant l'exemple d'un pays, d'une cinématographie qui gagne le marché. Parce que le marché, il ne faut pas toujours le voir en termes d'argent. J'ai dit l'Afrique est colonisée par l'image de l'autre. Il faut voir le marché aussi en termes d'aliénation, en termes d'influence. Et ça, actuellement, nous pouvons voir que le cinéma nigérian a une grande influence, sur le regard et les imaginaires des Africains. Donc je voudrais vraiment que notre commission réfléchisse avec les praticiens, pas les bureaucrates, ce n'est pas leur métier. Qu'on réfléchisse ensemble sur des vrais chemins à suivre. Je vous remercie.
What a mouthful, Mr. Kanyinda. Thank you. Thank you so much. Key things, I think, as we move towards our last two speakers. I think the issue of market is very important. I think as Africa, to address the issue of market, the market is there, it's huge. We need to break borders. We have countries who have, let's look at Gabon, for example, they just have 2.5 million in population. So if you look at Eswatini with 1.2, if a country just look at their population alone, then film can't go anywhere. When you look at Nigeria as the largest population in Africa, with about 1.2 billion, huh? No, 220 million people. If we break our borders in terms of markets, we grow our products because the market is large. You talk about fighting neocolonialism and how we can use film to eliminate and liberate Africa, increasing trade beyond our borders. A question that we'll have to take home, we may not discuss it here. Who does the filming of nature in our African countries? When you watch the Discovery channels, you have, who does that? Did you know that's one of the wealthiest subsector in film? People come and we give licenses for them to come and film in your national parks. It may not even be the Film Commission. Someone grants them the license, they come, they sit there for 2 weeks, 1 month, waiting to capture that moment. And many of you here and in your countries don't know where the money is coming from. Where does it finally go? A question for tomorrow. Let me ask Dr. Dongon to take us through with your presentation. Thank you. And also address the issue of where do we want to go as Africa?
Merci, monsieur le modérateur. Je vais parler français. Monsieur le modérateur, je voudrais vous demander une permission avant d'aborder ce pourquoi je suis ici. Je voudrais saluer deux sœurs qui, grâce à leur persévérance, grâce à leur détermination et grâce à leur amour, nous sommes ici. C'est vrai que les aînés ont planté l'arbre, mais il faut trouver des gens qui vont arroser. Il y a toujours, si un groupe marche, il y a toujours un leader ou bien des leaders. Et je voudrais vraiment vous demander, si vous permettez, qu'on les applaudisse. Elles sont ici. Je voudrais parler de Angela et Mounene. Parce que, je le dis, j'ai vu les difficultés, j'ai vu les problèmes, j'ai vu les problèmes, mais elles ont décidé de continuer. Elles pouvaient décider d'arrêter tout. C'est vrai que quelqu'un peut commencer, mais si elle n'avait pas fait, on ne serait pas ici. Cela dit, je voudrais revenir ce pourquoi nous sommes ici. Je voudrais faire de métaphores. L'Afrique, je considère l'Afrique comme une jeune fille très belle, très intelligente, et que des jeunes garçons courent derrière elle. Et chaque garçon vient avec une stratégie. Parce que ces jeunes garçons savent que cette fille est intelligente. Si on arrive à la garder, elle sera utile. Je le dis parce que vous voyez l'Afrique est envoyée. L'Afrique, vous voyez les géants des États-Unis, vous voyez Hollywood, vous voyez Netflix, vous voyez Google, tous veulent venir en Afrique. Vous voyez l'Europe, Canal+, mon grand frère a parlé de Canal+. Canal+, non seulement a envahi la télévision, mais aussi en train de prendre les salles de cinéma. La télévision l'a envoyé de telle manière qu'elle est en train de dicter la population africaine, surtout l'Afrique subsaharienne francophone, de ne qu'aimer que les téléfilms et non le cinéma. Vous voyez la Chine. La Chine aussi est en train d'envahir sur le plan cinématographique, sur le plan audiovisuel l'Afrique. Vous voyez aussi les pays émergents. Les pays comme Hollywood qui sont en train d'envahir. Face à ça, qu'est-ce que ces jeunes filles-là peuvent faire? De gauche à droite, on l'envahit. Il faut nécessairement que ces jeunes filles parlent à ses amis, que ces jeunes filles parlent à ses parents, ses amis, ses parents. Il faut nécessairement que ces jeunes filles arrivent à s'ouvrir. Et c'est ça que nous sommes en train de faire. Je le dis parce que aujourd'hui, ces pays occidentaux ont compris que la guerre aujourd'hui, c'est une guerre de contenu. C'est la guerre de contenu. Celui qui n'arrive pas, ou bien le pays qui n'arrive pas à maîtriser et n'arrive pas à imposer d'une manière ou d'une autre sa culture, ne peut pas imposer ses produits. Et c'est ça. Vous voyez, la Chine n'investissait pas dans le domaine de l'audiovisuel avant. Avant, la Chine cherchait seulement le matériel. Elle cherchait seulement à construire, à prendre les droits. Maintenant, elle a commencé par dire non. Pour prendre l'Afrique, il faut que j'exercice dans le l'audiovisuel. Et ça, moi, les aînés, ceux qui ont pris la parole, ont déjà dit. Moi, je voudrais proposer, c'est des solutions que je voudrais proposer. J'ai toujours dit que le cinéma africain, on cherche des solutions, mais on oublie au moins capital. Tout à l'heure, mon grand frère parlait du marché. Quand vous parlez du marché, vous avez le marché, vous avez le vendeur, vous avez le produit, vous avez l'acheteur. Est-ce qu'on parle, on pense au cinéphile, on pense à l'éducation de ceux qui vont consommer le produit. Aujourd'hui, est-ce que quand, avec tout ce que je viens de dire, pour dire que l'Afrique est envoyée, ou le modèle du cinéma africain d'un jeune, j'ai fait une étude à mon université, je vais me présenter après, j'ai fait une étude sur centaines d'étudiants. Je suis du Bénin. Et je voudrais savoir le modèle du cinéma que ces jeunes veulent. Mais eux tous, c'est Hollywood. Donc ces jeunes, non seulement ce que j'ai dit, le gouvernement, comme l'a dit le directeur de la commission de cinéma à Kenya, il faut un environnement dans tout ce que nous faisons, il faut un environnement. Mais l'environnement, si vous avez l'environnement, il faut des gens qui vont travailler dans cet environnement. Il faut que nous, les professionnels, nous qui sommes non seulement des pratiquants, aussi des théoriciens, comment nous allons faire pour amener le gouvernement, les autorités à prendre confiance. Et comme tout le monde le dit, l'exemple de Nollywood, un exemple palpable, il est là, peut-être il va me faire une confiance. Nollywood, à ce qui paraît, parce que ce que j'ai vu, ce n'est pas le gouvernement qui a créé l'environnement, c'est les cinéastes qui ont amené le gouvernement à créer l'environnement. Donc, moi je dis, pour cela, nous les cinéastes, nous, les théoriciens, on doit créer un lobbying. Et le lobbying qu'on va créer, ce n'est pas seulement entre nous et je ne sais pas. Elle a parlé de que la Chine a construit près d'une ville, mais quelque chose de salle de cinéma. Elle devait, si c'est possible, partager cette expérience pour que le Bénin aussi arrive, même si on n'arrive pas à construire 1000 salles de cinéma, le Bénin peut s'inspirer de l'exemple de l'Afrique du Sud pour aller faire un projet. J'ai dit aussi qu'il faut créer des laboratoires de recherche. Parce que nous pensons que le cinéma, l'industrie culturelle créative, tout ce que nous disons, il n'y a pas vraiment une recherche scientifique faite dans ce sens pour dire quel cinéma nous donnons de l'Afrique, quelles sont les cinématographies d'Afrique, quel genre de cinéma. Quand vous prenez le cinéma chinois, vous ne pouvez pas voir le cinéma chinois sans que quelquefois drame, que ce soit film d'amour, vous prenez le cinéma Hollywood, vous allez voir la danse, c'est ça qui est devenu l'Afrique, c'est quel genre de cinéma vous. Et nous ne pouvons pas le faire sans de recherche. Donc moi je dis qu'il faut créer des pôles de recherche. Aujourd'hui nous sommes en train de, on parle de la technologie et nous avons des think tanks. Mais à Hollywood travaille avec Silicon Valley. Est-ce qu'on ne peut pas créer un pont entre la recherche scientifique numérique et l'industrie créative? Ça, c'est des interrogations que je pose. Comment nous utilisons la diaspora? Par exemple, dis-moi, vous vous souvenez, moi j'ai eu la chance, ceux qui le connaissent, c'est le Béninois qui est volé à Hollywood. J'ai eu la chance de rentrer en contact avec. Et j'ai pu obtenir quelque chose. Il dit que tout Africain qui veut tourner un film et que l'histoire est captivante, il est prêt à venir aider ce réalisateur. Donc c'est un atout qu'on peut exploiter. Je l'ai dit à l'université, je suis en train de faire une expérience parce que pour moi le cinéma est transversal. Je dis, quand vous parlez, vous voyez National Geographic dans le domaine de l'archéologie. C'est les cinéastes qui travaillent. Donc je suis en train de créer un projet avec le département de l'archéologie pour voir comment les jeunes cinéastes vont accompagner les archéologues pour faire un film documentaire sur. Je suis en train aussi de créer une expérience avec les géographes. Les géographes pour voir comment les cinéastes peuvent travailler avec. Donc en faisant ça, on impose le cinéma dans la vie quotidienne de la population africaine. J'ai demandé, j'ai voulu parler du Bénin. Je suis cinéaste et je suis enseignant de cinéma. J'ai fait ma thèse en Chine, j'ai fait 10 ans en Chine. Pourquoi le cinéma chinois marche? Le cinéma chinois marche, c'est à cause de la jeunesse. C'est vrai qu'on ne peut pas transporter leurs enfants ici. Les salles sont là, ça c'est vrai, mais c'est les enfants qui poussent les parents à aller dans les salles de cinéma. Ce n'est pas les parents qui décident. Quand un enfant décide, il y a un film qui est sorti, l'enfant veut partir, il fait beaucoup de son papa et sa maman, aille dans le cinéma, aille voir le cinéma. Pourquoi j'ai pris deux exemples? Quelle est la politique, quelle est leur stratégie par rapport à la jeunesse? Parce que l'Afrique aussi, nous aimons nos enfants. Les Chinois, c'est vrai, ils ont un seul enfant. Tout Africain aime son enfant. Donc comment nous allons faire pour pouvoir éduquer et faire pour que nos enfants aussi fassent comme nous? Pour finir, je voudrais, je ne sais pas si ça, les gens qui ont fait ça, on parle de l'industrie culturelle créative. Et dans cette industrie, nous avons la danse, nous avons le théâtre. Aujourd'hui, quand vous prenez la danse, la musique a une place dans l'industrie culturelle en Afrique. Pourquoi on ne peut pas faire un temps d'œil à ces stars de la musique, ces stars du sport, ces stars de la danse pour qu'il y ait une connexion pour pouvoir faire installer l'industrie culturelle créative. Voilà quelques
Thank you so much, Doc. Whilst we wind up, can you cue Dr. Ezekiel Onyango? Is cute. Thank you so much, Doc, for your presentation, where you technically end with the intersection with the other creative sector, subsector like dance and music. We would like to quickly move to our online panelist, Dr. Ezekiel Onyango from the Kenyan Film and Television Professionals Association. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Thank you very much, kind sir. With all protocols observed, I would still like to recognize the presence of our Principal Secretary, the Honorable Ismail Made, the presence of Angela Martins, the Head of Culture and Sports Division at the Africa Union, and our very own CEO of the Kenya Film Commission, Mr. Timothy Owase. Having said that, I would like to say it's a great honor and privilege to be part of this esteemed panel moderated by yourself, Mr. Nicholas Moyo, the PS Ministry of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture from Zimbabwe. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to the African Union, the Aacc, the Department of Film Services in Kenya, and the Kenya Film Commission for this wonderful opportunity to discuss economic development and the film industry with all of you today. For a long time, the cultural and creative industries have overwhelmingly contributed to the economic development of the global north, a stark contrast to what is the reality of the global south. While the basic dynamics of the creative economy in both hemispheres may be the same, in that informal and small micro businesses, freelancers struggling to find finance and skills and value from their IP, the social and cultural and policy environments are very different, which makes the intervention by the AU to create Aacc a very strategic solution to improve on the environment that will ensure the creative economy in Africa will get the right support and spur its potential for Africa's economic advancement. Before I get into my presentation, I have listened to the esteemed panel and a theme on market has clearly come out. And I'd like to point out that market really is about supply and demand. And I'll make reference to the IFPI Global Music Report for 2024 that indicates that Sub-Saharan Africa has now become the fastest growing market for streaming platforms, especially the ones for music, with Sub-Saharan Africa now commanding a market share of 24.7%, up from a mere 9%. This means that Sub-Saharan Africa market has become the fastest growing market globally for music streaming platforms. And it is the only market to surpass the 20% growth rate reported in 2024. The revenues from the Sub-Saharan Africa climbed by 24%, and this is fueled by gains in paid music streaming platforms. So why I think it's important to share this is to just underpin that we have the market in the continent, and our market also has capacity for discretionary spending. What we need to do is organize our supply and demand arena so that we can harness the full potential of this market. Having said that, I would like to indicate that as I serve as the chairperson of the Kenya Film and Television Professionals Association, I'm also a professional researcher in the field of cultural and creative industries, and my main area of interest is economic development using the instruments of the sector. I would now like to share with you a brief presentation that I've prepared in line with the conversation of today and in line with the Agenda 2063 of Sustainable Development on the continent. To begin, I'd like to say that the biggest topic we have purposely spoken about today has been economic development. So I'm going to delve into this issue of GDP and indicators in the context of the film industry in Africa. Broadly, it's a conversation on how cultural economics can support the AU agenda for sustainable development. Now let's look at what the gross domestic product in relation to the screen sector means. In simple terms, we're talking about the measure of the total value of goods and services produced within a country for a specific period. So when you look at the film industry, the current instrument of measuring GDP will focus on film production, distribution, exhibition, and related activities in that overall economy. To look at the key components of GDP in the film industry as it is currently within the continent. Majorly, and I'm citing examples from about 8 countries, the focus is on the production of the film and TV content, film distribution, exhibition, ancillary markets, related services, indirect and induced effects, and then exports and imports. To get to know how these contribute to the GDP, African countries have a more shared way of indicators, and these indicators that we apply to understand what the contribution of GDP to the film industry are, broadly, either directly or indirectly, include for direct contribution, box office revenue, and then home entertainment and streaming, film production, distribution and licensing, merchandising and related items. That is direct contribution. And then we've got the indirect or induced contribution, and majorly African countries are focused on what we call film tourism or screen sector driven tourism as a measure of contribution of film. This is how many tourists could say they came to a particular country because they watched a film. And then employment, as people have reported, the film industry creates a lot of employment directly and indirectly, and that has a ripple effect on income. To put this into context, as this, I'm just sharing what is common practice at the moment to build up on the anchor of my presentation. So to put this in context, we look at a case study of Nigeria, having looked at what the GDP is, what the components of the GDP are for the film industry, and what are the key indicators for measuring it. We now look at Nollywood as a case study based on the principles that I've shared. And when they measure using these indicators and principles, we see that Nollywood contributes to about 1.42% to Nigeria's national GDP. And because it's crossed the baseline of 0, it's now identified as a key player in the country's economic development. The two most trends that come out of the indicators that are used to measure is employment generation and the capacity to export. And we know that Nollywood has exported films to the rest of the continent in the last 2 decades. So this paints a picture of what the current situation is in terms of how we measure GDP and film, the contribution of film industry to GDP in African countries. However, based on the research that we're currently conducting, there is a great unmeasured value that we call the ripple effect of film production. So everything that I have explained about the components of the GDP measure, the indicators that are used to measure this GDP, and the case study that I've given you, primarily when you look at an entire production ecosystem, it's only 30% of a film budget that goes to the actual film-related activities. This doesn't matter if it's a local production, if it's an international production, if it's a small scale or a large scale production. And the screen that I'm sharing with you now, if you look at the black box where I'm saying screen production specific, when you have a budget of 100%, we can be able to now clearly say that only about 30 to 35% of your budget will directly go to what we're calling production specific spending. 70% of that will end up in other sectors that are not related to the screen sector. And this has been a point that we have not properly measured before in the entirety of sub-Saharan Africa, as the indicators that I pointed out earlier that we use to measure leave out the ripple effect as a direct measure of the film industry's contribution to a country's GDP. Let's take a look at some of these items that contribute the entire ecosystem of the 70%. When you talk about training and education, when you talk about primary finance, legal, and company cost, what businesses did we give banks from the loans that we took? What amounts of money did we pay legal firms to ensure that the production that we're doing or the primary business that we're doing is done correctly? The miscellaneous labor, the health and medical business that we give out, the safety and security, fashion and beauty, real estate, music and performing, business support, construction. It's a whole list of things that if you critically look at the production budget, you find that 70% of what we spend literally goes to other sectors. So when GDP is being measured, and it's being measured based on the indicators that I have presented, then we have what we call the unmeasured value of Africa's contribution into the gross domestic product or gross value added for our nations. In reality, I would say if proper indicators were applied and the ripple effect was to be measured effectively, Nigeria's contribution would probably move from 1% to a double digit or even bigger. So having put this into context, I believe that the intervention we have today of AAA and CC has a really critical component of what I'm calling unifying the conversation. So a lot of people will ask, why have we found ourselves in a place where we're not able to completely measure the value of what we do in cinema and film? But I would like to point out as a lack of an African definition and an African theory and context of what the creative economy is. In all the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, you have an emerging trend of governments starting to realize the potential of the creative economy. And in doing so, there has been an appetite to design policies that would then move the states forward and look at the creative economy as a driver of economic advancement. However, in the absence of a clearly defined and clearly structured definition of what the creative economy means for the African economies, certain countries have found themselves needing to adapt to models that have been designed in the global north. And these are the UK model as prescribed in the DCMS, the UN CTAD model, or the Indonesian model, or the emerging South Korean model. And in doing that, we are finding that instead of having a single driven creative economy agenda, we have micro models that our different countries are running. And I'll give a classic example of East Africa. We've got 7 countries, and each country at this very moment is trying to figure out policies that will drive the creative economy forward. But each country is looking at adopting a model because we don't have a unifying model. And this, to me, is the biggest gap that we have in unifying this conversation. Africa should define what the creative economy is in the reality of our economic context, in our populous context, and then have it as a global model that African countries and even other people in the world can adopt to. If we've got this driven agenda, we will then be able to design models that would, in a very simple way, guide countries on how to mainstream the creative economy in their respective governments in line with this unified definition. So with that, I'd like to now present a simple presentation on what recommendations I would give to the AACC so that we are able to harness the right measure of our contribution to the GDP and then put in place measures that will ensure we not only measure correctly, but we are able to now go and guide the different trading blocks within the continent to start adopting an AU-defined creative economy model and an AU-driven creative economy policy that will respond to these economic advancements that we are after. So my first recommendation would be for the AU through the AACC to define what the creative economy is in Africa, so that this can then be adopted and unifiedly implemented in our regional trading blocks. I'll give a case of point of the East African community. If we find a mainstreaming model that's guided by the AU and all the 7 countries within the East Africa community are able to adapt and design national policies that will create some cross-national exchange, we then move as Kenya from a country that has a populace of 50 million to a region that is unified with creative economy policy of over 300 million people. You can already see what that will do to create that supply and demand balance that I spoke to earlier. To achieve this, I think it will be important for the AU in general, not just even the AACC, to develop a policy and an evidence center, a nucleus that will be the epicenter of developing strategies for the creative economy for Africa. Because right now, we've got over 50 countries doing everything on their own, but we all want to be able to have cross-national policies that will improve our capacity to trade and integrate within AfCFTA. And last but not least, I think developing a mainstreaming model of economic development from the cultural and creative industries will be a key agenda for the AU through the AACC. Economic models that will allow countries to improve their workforce, their infrastructure, their incentive programs, and the capacity to export for growth. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my humble submission for this morning, and looking forward for a further engagement as we proceed with the conversation. Thank you very much.
Let's put our hands together to Dr. Ezekiel Onyango. What a way to end our panelist discussions. Let's put our hands together for all our panelists. As we reconfigure our sitting to end, I would like to open for a brief Q&A. We are moving towards the end of our session before we break for lunch. I would like to open this session for Q&A. And when I come back to my panelists, I will give each one of them 1 minute each, so they may be thinking about, just for 1 minute, your parting shots in terms of the key instruments that you want to leave to this house on the issues that we have been discussing. Just one when we come back. I'm looking for hands, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I have my assistants that have microphones that are going to move. I have a gentleman over there. Another one who is going to ask a question. I have 2 gentlemen. Then there is a lady here. I have 3. I have 4. I will have the last 2, the lady and the gentleman at the end. I will take this round of these 6 questions or interventions by the way, and each one of you just has 90 seconds for your interventions, nothing more. Thank you. Anyone with a microphone, you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity, and well done to my compatriot, P.S. Moyo. My question is directed at Ms. Reddy. I'm not sure whether... You're just trying to get me next to you. My question was to Ms. Reddy. Your Durban Film Mart sounds like a very interesting place. You said it's where people come, get their projects funded. How are you funded, and how can we create more areas like that I'm very interested in how you work logistically and what you feel your impact has been. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question.
Let's write. Let's take up. I'm going to take all the round of 6, please. For my presenters, just take notes so that when we want to wind up. Thank you so much.
Hello again. Thank you, first of all, to all the presenters and all the information you shared. My question is for Magdalene, because you talked about the problem of piracy. I don't think that we will be able to eliminate piracy, but the solution rather is to make it redundant. I think over the last 2 years, Netflix had a free mobile option where you could access the programming for free. So maybe the solution is to have a parallel program, or when it comes to Kenyan African content, make a deal with the existing providers where that can be accessed via the platforms for free, and find a way to remunerate the creators on the back end. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that contribution. The next guy.
Well, thank you very much. And I think mine still touched on piracy. And I would maybe ask for insights, because...
Can you raise up your voice, or can we up the mic?
Yeah, because we have heard that one of the contribution of piracy is very controversial, because piracy is being viewed as a negative.
The panelists are actually not getting anything, or whether it's a question or contribution. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I just wanted to talk about piracy, and I had an insight that we want to hear from anyone who has an idea of Nollywood, that piracy has helped in the distribution of content, such that you can produce, and the distribution chain, that the cost of production, you just get collaboration with those guys producing. So basically my concern is that how would piracy be used as a means to effectively help the distribution of our content in Africa?
Thank you. That's a question one of you will take. You. Who else has the microphone? Let it come here, and then the other mic is that side. Thank you. The gentleman here, the microphone. Yes. You can go ahead, madam.
Thank you. My question goes to all the panelists. As we think about the future of filmmaking in Africa, what is your take on film censorship?
Film censorship. Thank you. Go ahead.
Merci de m'avoir donné la parole. Permettez-moi, avant d'exprimer ma préoccupation, d'adresser mes remerciements aux organisateurs, et plus particulièrement Madame Angela. J'ai suivi avec une attention particulière les échanges, les débats que vous avez menés, et je me réjouis d'être ici avec vous pour échanger, pour apprendre à connaître les vraies préoccupations que nous nous interrogeons tous sur la problématique de la culture, et plus particulièrement le cinéma. Alors, la question que je voudrais poser, puisqu'il y a eu beaucoup de propositions qui ont été faites, est de savoir comment faire réellement de l'Afrique comme une destination du cinéma. Nous avons vu et entendu les problèmes qui déciment le continent, les pays, notamment la question des moyens financiers pour pouvoir financer ces activités. La question des règles, de la législation. Nous avons aussi cité, je ne vais pas revenir là-dessus, parce que beaucoup des propositions, beaucoup des constats, excusez-moi, ont été faits. et que ces constats-là restent ou sinon nous concernent tous et toutes. Et surtout dans les pays d'Afrique où la culture est souvent considérée comme l'enfant pauvre de développement, où la culture dans nos différents pays est souvent déplacée comme une structure ou secteur nomade d'un ministère à un autre. Et comment nous pouvons placer cette richesse que nous sommes tous conscients, qui est une activité rassembleur et fédérateur dans nos pays, dans notre continent, comme une destination pour tous. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I pray you understood the question. We have the last question coming from the end. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for very insightful discussions. Mine is on AFCTA. I've had opportunity to read the AFCTA documents, and creative sector comes in as a footnote. So, being that both these initiatives come under the African Union or with the participation of the African Union, does it mean that now ACCA now will actually be able to move the creative sector from a footnote to an actual pillar of AFCTA? Thank you.
Thank you. We just have the last presentation, then I come back to my panelists.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to clarify on the question that he was asking. And before I say that, Tales of the Ant, until I serve a historian, Tales of the Ant will always glorify the hunters. We are now the historians here. I want to clarify what we wanted to ask. We find that production in Kenya is very expensive. So I think what he wanted to say is, how can we leverage the pirate? But is there a way they can pay us like X plus 1, we make the profit and then they can do the distribution for us instead of stealing from us? The others, I'm a writer-producer, and we've seen the other day when the writers were at a strike, and now I would like to ask the panel what they think about us, the writers, and how we can be able to be protected from all the upcoming issues like the AI and everything else that is happening out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask maybe
markets and promotion of platforms that promote film. So yeah, it's very difficult and we keep moving on.
Thank you. I will give it to Anna and then.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll respond to 3 questions. The first one relates to where is the place of censorship in Africa. My response to this is that I would like to encourage storytellers that we encourage self-regulation. Anytime you are coming up with a script, let your script conform with the norms, what has been guided in a country, and so that we are all compliant and that we are able to come up with the stories stories that we can be able to actually access without any hindrance. So self-regulation will be my advocacy. The next question is in relation to marketing Africa as a destination. I think this is very noble, and all that needs to be done is to position Africa. You can only position a place, a destination, when you have everything right. Have the policies, the incentives, the infrastructure, the capacity in terms of skills, and you'll be able to position Africa very well to connect with other countries. Lastly, the point on piracy. I think piracy is a menace. I will not be able to really champion that we encourage pirates to do business. Let them do legitimate business. At no point should we ever encourage pirates to actually do piracy because they are depriving the real owners of intellectual property. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Onke.
I'd just like to address the gentleman's question around culture. I think one way to really capitalize on it is through taxes. We need to get to a stage where we need to be charging cultural taxes, right? So a heritage tax. There's been some research done around it. I mean, if you look at a lot of the incentives in South Africa, there are a lot of production incentives for filming in South Africa. Even in countries like Australia, where their film tourism is a lot more sophisticated, particularly on the coastline. There are tax imperatives there as well, right, when you produce for the purposes of tourism. So a cultural heritage tax, you know, once you involve the taxman into the situation, people will follow the rules in order to access and have access to whatever type of cultural imperative that they want. The only thing though is you need to have a proper balance, because you don't want to create a worse situation that we currently have. The gentleman spoke earlier about National Geographic and how you have European organizations, European countries really owning the rights to a lot of the kind of landscape content, which also to a certain extent, to a large extent, really speaks to the culture. It needs to be something that works in our favor, such that even their access to that is something that comes at a good cost to them, right? So it's not just free access to the environment. It comes at a cost. It comes at a tax. There are quite a number of taxes that you can have that can benefit the film industry. France, I think, is one of the countries that does it quite well. But taxes makes a huge difference. It feeds right back directly back into the industry.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Because of time, I'm being short that we have gone beyond of time because it will affect the afternoon program. I will at this time not take further questions from the audience, but invite my panelists to give a summary 1 minute each, so that we finish in the next 7 minutes before we take a break and go for lunch. We are coming back in the afternoon for another panel conversation. I know some of the issues will also still come back in the afternoon session. So let me allow my panelists, the way they presented, just to give 1 minute short. Thank you.
I would like to say that if it were possible, Aacc should be able to divide Africa into 5 different regions, so that we can be able to strengthen the workforce of the young people. They will be able to compete favorably from those different points, showcase their case, their films at the center of one of the regions. And from there, we should be able to pick films that would go for sale, films that would be rewarded, films that can make these people encouraged. Because with nearly 1 billion people in the periphery of the industry, it is going to be very dangerous for us. We must know how to put bread on their table, how to energize them, and how to strengthen their production skills. The other bit is, if we are going to strengthen destination, we should be able to create and work with the stories that will attract people from other countries, so that when we showcase our films here, then they will be able to come. So that would be my way of looking at it. And it is important that different countries look at their young populations like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So in the gentleman earlier did a presentation around the film industry in Nigeria. The film industry in Nigeria is actually the second highest employer in the country. In the country of Nigeria, they have zero government funding. I think one of the first places is to remove some of the perceptions that we have. As a South African, I know we have this kind of toxic trait to think that we're better than other African countries, but we're not. And there's, number one, the first thing is the learning that we can learn from other African countries and how they function with their film industries quite profitably. In the absence of government funding in South Africa, you will probably not have as robust a film industry as you have. Nigeria is the opposite. So learning, counter-learning is absolutely fundamental. When we were talking about co-productions across the continent, we have 12 co-production treaties, 13 actually, one with Nigeria, also with Kenya, and also with, I forgot the third African country, but the point of the matter is that the good thing about those co-production treaties is the skills development exchange. It's absolutely fundamentally critical, especially continent to continent, to understand how in other African countries they work around it, they get it done with far less. There was a comment made around piracy, right, and how to work with piracy. I think the fashion industry has figured it out, right? So if you look at an organization like LVMH, they actually make money from pirates. A lot of the organizations that build warehouses where they create counterfeit products, they actually make money back. The difference is they that industry in those regions is at the top of the food chain, highly valued industry. We need to get to a point where we reframe the value of the industry, right? Before we start making it easier for people to counterfeit, what you need to do is reframe the value of the industry first. That is the primary journey. You need institutions like this to make sure that you have national agendas that make sense, where film is there at the top and it scales down. Then you have a continental agenda where it's the same thing. Only when we get to that point can you think about accommodating pirates to make money back from them.
Thank you. One issue, 1 minute.
Thank you. In my closing remarks, we all have an opportunity as Africa, so let's take Africa to the world and the world to Africa through storytelling by taking deliberate steps collaboratively in the attainment of Africa's Agenda 2063. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You don't want my microphone.
C'est la valeur contenue. La valeur contenue m'intéresse parce que c'est elle qui détermine toute la force du marché. La valeur contenue n'est possible et concurrentielle que quand derrière il y a une bonne formation. Mais la formation, c'est pas que la technique. La formation, c'est d'amener un jeune homme, une jeune dame, face à la caméra, de comprendre qu'est-ce qu'elle met dans la caméra. La caméra, c'est un outil. C'est un outil qui a besoin d'être nourri, mais nourri à bon escient. Mais je vais revenir sur l'exemple ici de la narration du lion. Quelqu'un dit, et je l'ai fait dans un film d'ailleurs, les lions doivent raconter leur histoire. Et mon ami de la NBF revient sur l'exemple tout à l'heure de National Geographic. Mais parfois, je me dis, nous, Africains, on est des gens irresponsables. Nous savons tous ici que le lion vit dans la savane. Les lions ne vivent pas dans la forêt. Les lions et les apparentés animaux gréfants vivent dans la savane. Nous pouvons, ici au Kenya, le démontrer. Et quelqu'un vient, il fait un film. Il appelle le roi lion, le roi de la jungle. Nous, on ne dit rien. Donc tout d'un coup, nos enfants pensent que les lions vivent dans la forêt. Et nous ne disons rien. Parfois les lions, ils se disent, mais est-ce que ces Africains, ils sont normaux ou quoi? Moi, je vis dans la forêt. Comment ils permettent qu'on dise que les lions vivent dans la forêt alors que je vis dans la savane? Donc c'est juste une métaphore pour comprendre qu'est-ce que nous voulons mettre dans notre narration. Est-ce que nous voulons juste faire des images comme Hollywood ou Bollywood ou whatever? Est-ce que nous voulons vraiment réfléchir sur nous-mêmes? Est-ce que nous voulons vraiment être en face de notre miroir et de nous dire, tiens, l'image qui est dans le reflet là, c'est moi, c'est pas quelqu'un d'autre. Donc je pense que c'est très important. On peut parler du marché, des régulations, des statistiques. Mais qu'est-ce que nous mettons à l'image? C'est la chose la plus importante. On peut faire des films, on peut faire rigoler, on peut faire des comédies, on peut gagner beaucoup d'argent, mais aussi, on peut aussi perdre son peuple. C'est ce que nous sommes en train de vivre. Voilà un peu. Moi, je pense aussi, pour terminer, sur l'importance de la culture dans notre gouvernance, c'est que j'ai eu la chance de visiter beaucoup de pays d'Afrique et des gouvernants et quelquefois de parler avec beaucoup de chefs d'État. Ce qu'on remarque chez les gouvernants africains, c'est qu'il est resté tributaire de la verticalité coloniale de la culture. Qu'est-ce que c'est la verticalité coloniale de la culture? Les blancs colonisateurs, ils étaient en haut. Hein? En Afrique du Sud, ils ont appelé ça the Bantu culture. Something that really the bottom. Hein? Ça, c'est nous, la culture. On est resté dans cette verticalité alors que nous avons la chance de faire de l'horizontal. C'est-à-dire, si nous arrivons à comprendre quelle est notre place dans notre propre univers, qu'est-ce que nous voulons raconter pour nous-mêmes, hein? Et sortir du conceptuel, je pense qu'on aura fait un pas en avant, parce que pour moi, le cinéma, c'est pas un divertissement. Le divertissement, je sais l'écrire. J'ai été à l'école pour ça. Ce qui m'intéresse dans le cinéma, c'est qu'est-ce que moi, je regarde et j'ai dit de moi-même, donc de l'Afrique. C'est ça qui est le plus important. C'est ça qui va durer. C'est ça qui reste longtemps. Qu'aujourd'hui, dès qu'on regarde un film africain, on a vu juste, on a mal au cœur. C'est de la mauvaise comédie, de l'autodérision, de l'auto-insulte. Donc, essayons un peu de nous ressaisir et de dire au monde entier que les lions n'est pas les rois de la forêt. Les lions, ils vivent dans la savane. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think for me, as the ending statement, many of us here have been saying the same things in terms of the challenges we have been experiencing and the vision we want, the Africa we want to see. I think we need to be working together and not working in our own silos. We all want change, and if we work together, we'll be able to see that change happen. My second point is it's an urge to the elders in the room to pass on the baton to the next generation. The youth should not be fighting the same battles that our elders have been fighting. So all that institutional learnings need to be transferred to the next generation. And my last point is the Durban Film Mart takes place on the 19th to the 22nd of July. It's our 15th edition. It's just a marketing plug that I'm putting out there. I'd like to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One shot.
Deuxième proposition, c'est à la jeunesse. On voudrait partir de l'exemple de la Chine. Par jour, la Chine produit au moins 1 million de films pour et non étrangers. appelle 2 films sortent par an. 2 films sortent par an. Donc, comme l'a dit mon doyen, votre différence, c'est votre culture. Donc, pourquoi vous appropriez de votre culture? Appropriez-vous de la culture africaine et produisez. Produisez, si ça marche, c'est bon, si ça ne marche pas, continuez. Troisièmement, je voudrais parler, on avait parlé de lobbying. C'est le lobbying, il faut le faire. Ce n'est pas le chef de l'État qui détermine le budget du cinéma, c'est le ministre des Finances. Parce que chaque État a des programmes. Dès que le ministre des Finances dit au chef de l'État, là il n'y a pas d'école, le chef de l'État va oublier le cinéma, le budget du cinéma pour donner l'argent à l'école. Donc allons voir le ministre des Finances. Merci.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together to our panel. I'm not going to summarize. I think. Oh, yes. Thank you. The one online. Dr. Ezekiel, are you still on? 1 minute, one issue.
I hope the laughter is not included in the minute. Thank you to the panelists and to the audience. I would like to begin by saying the problems we face in the world today are all primarily problems of culture, problems of the way we choose to do things, problems of the way we choose to relate with each other, whether it's climate, health, and even our own very creative economy. The creative economy in Africa, more so the film industry, in my view, remains the cement that will seal together our shared friendship as nations. It will bring meaning to cultural diversity, our passion for creation, where every story from every African country will matter, and it will create the rise of a global community of storytellers from Africa. The creative economy also has the extreme potential that we've witnessed in Nigeria, and it has been extremely remarkable to observe and watch the Nigerian journey to success, especially for our generation of filmmakers. Few countries in the whole world have reached so far in the pursuit of trying to make excellence out of the film industry. And yet until today, there is no comprehensive Africa Union-driven evidence center that is harnessing all these lessons and insights for future generations. It is therefore why I believe the AU through the Aacc can be able to tackle societal challenges, protect the integrity of our storytellers, and sort that precious balance between profits that are too often attractive and cultural responsibility which are too often neglected in our pursuit of film excellence. This is a journey that I believe the Aacc can take with the dignity, determination, and distinction that will become globally admired. Let's come together and try to build a paradigm shift of our culture in terms of how nations approach policy making. Let us use the Aacc as a nucleus of where we all share but develop cross-national policies that have a singular vision in moving our countries forward in this particular environment of the film industry. To conclude, I would like to say if the AU can mobilize for peace and security, the way they mobilize to bring peace back to Somalia, then I believe through the Aacc we can also mobilize to harness the full potential of the creative economy in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It is our responsibility as member countries to make this dream a reality. It is not the launch of the temporal secretariat of Aacc. It's putting life into it. And as different nations, it's our responsibility. It has been a great pleasure to be a moderator for 7 presenters. What a task. Allow me to invite them. Yes, let's put our hands. Please put our hands together for Honorable Nicholas Moyo. Thank you. Let me invite, where our cameramans, let me invite my panel to come and stand in front for a photo shoot as I hand over You can remain on video and they will crop you in. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Guys. Mr. Moyo. Round of applause for Honorable Mr. Moyo. He's very funny as well. He's got a sense of humor. Thank you very much. As I told you earlier, he's the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Sport, Recreation, Arts and Culture in Zimbabwe. I appreciate your very, very wonderful job there. I hope you're hungry. Are you hungry? Very hungry. Fantastic. I've got you covered. So what happens, we go downstairs and we get our lunch, but you must pick up a voucher from the ladies at the entrance so that we can be able to do that. What time should we come back? Can I have some guidance? 2:30? 2:30, guys? 2:30? 2:30? Daktari, 2:30. Zippy, 2:30. Okay. Langiri, 2:30. Sawa. Who else am I seeing there? Hey, Duto, 2:30. Sawa. I'm trying to make sure that you've had it's 2:30. So you don't say, Helen, 2:30? Okay, sawa. So ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we'll have a wonderful session led by none other than our Ghanaian sister. Yes, this is, it's going to be talking about engagement with media and stakeholders of the audiovisual and cinema industry, and Madam Akofa will be doing that for us. We're looking forward to that. All right? So, bon appetit, ladies and gentlemen, 2:30 on the dot. Thank you.